This is month 2. You're going to learn how to do flying geese and fussy cut your 6.5 inch squares. You're going to start with your page 2 of your directions, and you will need to refer to your general directions page as well. They talk about fussy cutting and your flying geese. And there is a tool that I'll show you how to do the flying geese. But first I'm going to start with your fussy cutting. You're going to be, in your packet you have your Cardinal fabric. You're going to need to cut 20 6.5 inch cardinals for your 20 blocks. You have plenty of fabric to cut those 20, as well as more you'll need for your table runner and pillow if you decide to do that. So what you can do is you want to start off with either a 6.5 inch square ruler, which I use because you want to have a center. Or you can also, what I thought you could do is if you purchase the Tucker trimmer, it's a 6.5 inch, there's a 6.5 inch square in here that I taped off, and the diagonal in the center, I just drew a point on there, so I could use that as my centering for the cardinal. And what I would do is lay it on there, and then I'm going to draw the 2 angles and then flip it around, line it up with that blue tape, and then draw the other 2. So you have a 6.5 inch square. And again, you can do the same thing with your 6.5 inch square ruler. What I would recommend you doing is cutting these out with scissors versus a rotary cutter, because the few times that I did it, the first time, I was cutting into what could have been a usable piece for the cardinal. So I think it's better that you use scissors versus a rotary cutter. You have to be really careful not to cut into some of the other close-knit cardinals. So once you have that, you'll have 20 of those. With one of the blocks, I think it's block 1 or block 2, you're going to have your fussy cut 6.5 inch cardinal, and you're going to make 10 of these. What you're going to do is you're going to be cutting out 3.5 inch red squares. On each set, you're going to need 4 of those squares. Each one of the squares you need to draw using your 1/4 inch ruler. You need to draw a line down the center, and you're going to lay it down. The first one you would lay, I showed here. You're going to lay the first one down, and you're going to sew on that solid line. Then you're going to sew it, another one on the opposite side, then 3, and then 4. What you're going to do though, the directions say to sew maybe 1 or 2 threads on the inside of this line. I would suggest you not do that, because if you do that, sew it on the inside of that line that you drew, you're going to end up with less than a 1/4 inch here. And you'll see what I mean when you start sewing. So my suggestion is you sew right on the line, no further in there. So you're going to sew 1, then the second one, 3rd one, and then the 4th one. And you're going to press them over. And you'll find that you're going to have 3 pieces here. I would not cut off the black part. You can cut the 3rd one off, but don't cut the back one off like I did here. Because if, for instance, if you sewed wonky, if you can see here, I still have my original square back there, so that I know that my square is still 6.5 inches square. If I were to trim that black off, then it's going to be off a little bit. So my suggestion is leave that back piece on there. Sometimes I leave all 3 pieces in there, but then it gets to be bulky, especially if a quilter is going to be quilting, it can be bulky. So trim the middle one out and leave a 1/4 inch seam allowance if you need to. So that's all there is on the fussy cutting. It's pretty simple, and again, it's detailed here on this on the back page. The written part is on the front, but they have the description diagrams on the back. Now I'm going to show you how to do the flying geese. You're going to start with, I think the instructions tell you to cut 7.5 inch strips, and then you're going to cut 7.5 inch squares out of the black vine, and then you're also going to cut 4 inch squares out of the green packed leaves. 4 squares go to one 7.5 inch square. What you need to do on all of your packed leaf squares on the back is draw your diagonal line, and if you have that 1/4 inch ruler, you can also draw on either side of that line as well. But you want to do that on all of your squares. I'm going to show you how to do the one square, the one flying geese. Right sides together, you're going to lay your first 2 squares diagonal to diagonal, and you want to lay them about 1/16 of an inch away from the edge. You can see I laid them this way, 1/16 of an inch here. And I want to make sure that my line is straight here. And then you're going to want to pin those. You're going to take it to your machine and you're going to sew on either side of that straight line. And I would suggest that you sew from this edge away from this flap so it doesn't get caught when you sew. So go this way and then turn around and you can go back that way. So you'll have two seam lines on either side of that line. It'll look something like this. Then you're going to cut on that solid line like I did. And you're going to press these open, or excuse me, you're going to press the seam toward the triangles. You can see here I pressed it. You're going to press toward the green triangles. This is on a bias. You can see the stretch there, so you don't want to steam and you don't want to press it too hard. Just lightly press it. Then what you're going to do with that 3rd and 4th original squares, you're going to lay this on this corner, again 1/16 away from the edge here, and you're going to sew down and back on either side of that line. And then you're going to cut on that line, and you will have, you guys can see this, you'll have 2, this isn't looking right here, you will have 2, when you open that up you'll have 2 flying geese, and again you press toward the green packed leaves. So let me reiterate that one. You're going to have something like this, you're going to lay that 3rd, and you have another one from your cut, your 3rd and 4th, you're going to lay it 1/16 away from that corner, and you're going to sew down and back on either side of that line. You're going to cut that, and then you'll have your 4 flying geese blocks. Now these are large, so we have to trim them down. And the pattern has you trim them down to 3.5 by 6.5 inches. And we've got this new tool that you might have purchased. It's called the wing clipper. And I don't know if you can see it on this demo, but what is great about it is it will trim it down to the exact measurement, and you'll have these X's along the top for the little X's up here. It trims it perfectly, and I'll show you how. What you need to do, start with your point of your flying geese pointing up, and your ruler should be pointed up with the X's along the top. And I'm going to line it up, that X up there, and I want to line up my diagonal lines here in that flying geese, and then I'm going to trim off the clips, and I don't want to hit you here. peel that away. You're going to flip it. And now we've got that point down here. Now I know that the left and the bottom are square, so I'm going to line that up. Excuse me, let me get my mess out of here. And I want to make sure that that's sitting in that little V, 3.5 by 6.5, and I square that up. And I have my perfect 3.5 by 6.5 inch flying geese. And you do that on all 4 of them. And I think you need 20 of these or 40 of them. I can't remember. It's in your directions. When you get done with these, you're going to, if you remember, you have 20 of the half square triangles of the red and of the green, and you are going to sew those to your flying geese. You're going to save out 10 of them, or I think 20 of them. I'm sorry, guys, I don't remember the exact amount, for constructing your block 1 and block 2. So just double check this is the orientation that you need, and you should be all set. Yay!